Hello, everyone. This is the monthly Cactus Poetry series from Placitas, New Mexico. And we're happy that you're joining us during the holiday season on the night of the long moon or the cold moon, or whatever name you know it by. Before we get started, I wanted to just quickly acknowledge that we lost three members of the Albuquerque poetry community within the last 2 weeks. It's been a very hard time for us. Jennifer Simpson, Eleanor Stewart, and Julie Brocken all passed away. And then I also lost a favorite aunt as well this past weekend. So it's been a hard time, but I do think poetry is one of those things that helps us to keep going and hopefully to get through all this. So I just wanted to give a shout out to those friends. And Eleanor was a Playhouse author, and Megan also. I'm sorry, Eleanor. Megan is going to be doing a book with Billy Brown, a book of her poetry, and then Julie also had close connection to the Poetry Playhouse, and published in our anthologies and so forth. And our good friend Denise Weaver Ross is going to be doing a book of her art and poetry. So there will be some remembrances there. And I thought I would just begin by reading a short poem that Julie Brocken published in the Mojo anthology that I did a few years ago. And the character here is Josephine. Josephine learns to drive a stick. Her father's expletive instruction worn as thin as her frayed cutoffs, learner's permit peeking through back pocket. Josephine will teach her own sweet farmer's daughter ass how to drive. Getting behind moon-sized wheel makes her feel all right. Chevy truck as old, poetic as she, the key, same 62C mist turquoise dreamland factory color. She's grinding gears wrong side of dusty gravel road, blind hilltop. Steering, wheel, doing the twist, steering, gone. She's learning to speak in her own colorful tongues. Radio screaming, highway to heaven, hell, going nowhere fast. Julie Brocken. So we'll let you know there will be readings and Zoom memorial services for all of those poets. Okay. On a more cheerful note, we have two exciting poets, and Megan Baldridge and Gail Hosking. And first up will be Megan Baldridge, who has published a number of books through the Poetry Playhouse publications, and kind of keeps us in business just by her own output, and she did the unprecedented book about someone who will be gone in 22 days. And then she did the book Cerdo, and then a whole series of books about poems about knitting, which she's kind of created her own knitting or knititude genre of poetry. And they're really delightful. Even if you don't knit, they're still delightful. And then she's branched out with two recent books, Unraveling, a memoir, and Of Pandemic Politics and Pumpkins. And I believe she'll be reading mostly from the last book, the Pandemic Politics and Pumpkins book. So if you would give a warm welcome to Megan Baldridge.
Thank you. Hi, John. I am gonna be reading from this 3P book of poems that I wrote in the last 9 months. Starting with COVID-19 Day 2, Or is it day 3? I tire of seeing more of myself than usual, but oh, the progress on the avocado lemon pullover yolk, and the time to change the security passwords has arrived in spades. Day 7, this virus separating friend from friend, grandmother from family, one from another, cannot keep the plum tree from singing, spring is here. Day 12, larder lurking. We have made time to check the expiration date of the soy sauce, tuna fish, peanut butter. We don't want to be ambulanced to the emergency room full of COVID patients for a bad case of expired chipotle salsa. Virality. The cat movies went viral. Gangnam Style went viral. The basketball shots spiraled virally. Then the virus went viral. And so viral reclaims its virility. Now we're getting into some politics. Nightly growling. I force my dog to watch TV, the coronavirus briefing, every evening. He growls at anyone who repeats the same thing twice in a row. I growl at false statements. If the president wasn't believable the first time, he is not more believable the 13th time. My dog and I growl together a lot, frequently, over and over. Then we howl in misery until I turn off the coronavirus briefing. After Tulsa and Charlotte, thoughts on young male obedience. I'm the mother of fair-skinned children. Sometimes I insist they weed the garden or take out the garbage right now. Buried in my request, can they show obedience? If they're stopped by the police tonight, that practice might save them. My daughter assents. My sons weigh a command as if it were a possibility. They do not comply unless they hear a calling, accept the commander, believe in the act. My sons expect a command to make sense. Generations allowed their questioning. Their community had time to listen to them. In Tulsa, Charlotte, Ferguson, Chicago, young Black men are killed by police for disobedience. They, not free to question, refused police commands, risked, lost their lives. Who can understand this act of self-sacrifice by a young man? Who can understand shooting to kill an unarmed man by the police? Only this, years ago, a young Black man, a slave, could not protest when his wife, his baby were auctioned off someone else's chattel. Is saying no still a white privilege? Today, my sons believe they will not be stopped by the police, or if stopped, they will not be frisked, or if frisked, they will not be illegally detained, or if detained, they will not be shot, or if shot, they will not be killed. They will come home safely. They believe, I believe. Fox and Friends, 2 days before Mother's Day. Mr. President, do you have a message for the mothers this Mother's Day? I'm going to be at Camp David meeting with the generals. I've made us bigger, better, stronger. We've got bigger, newer fighter jets. We're armed like never before. Moms, got that? Bigger, armed like never before. Happy Mother's Day. Kitchen cabinet voting. Someone's president accused me of mail-in ballot cheating. One of his everyone does it, impossible to refute, baseless claims. Baseless, wrong word, full of base. It revs, misinforms his base. So I'm accepting his invitation, requesting mail-in ballots for everyone in my household. Yes, Aunt Jemima, Uncle Ben, Juan Valdez and I will be voting in November for a candidate who focuses on governance, not for a bully who taunts us. The Republican convention. Have you ever hummed your way through an entire Republican convention led by line leaders? I'm hum blocking orchestrated gobbledygook speech this conventional week, but I hope to still hear the hummingbirds fussing at my back door. My son, studying swallowing, calls to remind me to drink water, so I won't be a swallowing statistic. But this week I already am, swallowing with difficulty, infrequently, as the president accepts nominations, his nomination today. Until there's a COVID cure, this president relies on snake oil. I'm managing his hypocrisy, my health, by tuning him out, readying the compost pile for an onslaught of unmentionable material to dump. I believe next year's garden, built on shambles of recent years, will be fruitful with new direction. To Clara Hughes. Claire Hugh, Trump plays the fiddle badly. Virulent evenings with President Trump and his 2-hour chest thumps. I miss shorter press briefs with news truer and fewer. And this is the Jared Clara Hugh. FEMA just got Jared and I'm feeling kind of scared. I'd like more personal protection, please, from inexperience and sleaze. Corona dreaming. What would it take for one small coronavirus, one mighty might, to sneak into the White House press briefing room, past the lawyers, past the campaign re-election team, past the pandering yes men and yes women, and past the Secret Service, and land within 6 feet of our national monolith, on target to infect one American not wise enough to follow the CDC mask guidelines. An average poet who might want the last hospital bed. You are a poet of medium ambitions, mincing metaphors, medium height, middle-aged, bifocaled. If there's a scarcity of doctors, nurses, medicines, beds, ventilators, will you be saved? To be honest, you're too wordy, and your lyrical poems about mountains have always been boring. Does your occasional valor, you man of metaphors, you woman of words, place you in front of, alongside, or way behind the satisfied soccer star, the cereal designer, the selfish sheetrock salesman, the sweet septuagenarian with shingles, or the shifty sheriff shrew, or the shrill shop girl with seamless stockings? If you want that last bed, better work on your metaphors, on your dramatic bedside performance. And 2 last poems. Social distancing with my daughter's dog. Someone's been licking my foot brace again. It's dampish, warm to the touch in the morning. I appreciate my daughter's dog, my granddog's concern for my broken ankle. Sniff away, Canella. Yesterday, we celebrated a victory of our co-sequestration with ankle injuries. Your cone was removed, duct taped, added around the ankle bracelet. At noon, the tape was breached. Your cone went back on. We commiserated. Admit it, you social distance better with the cone on. Is it a metaphor when I see you and me limping through a backyard garden that needs weeding? Is it the road, me playing Viggo Mortensen, you as my son? No, in fact, my future son-in-law, your dad, is watering the zinnias, and you and I walk in circles, admiring the flights of moths and hummingbirds. The watering reminds me that my people and their rescue dog moved in when I broke my ankle, needed help. Out came homemade pad thai, breakfast on the sofa, help watering, not isolation, not social distancing, instead extra sniffs and licks and body slams. And this is the pumpkin poem. This is a mother squash bug lullaby. This is a pumpkin eulogy. This is a song for all my squash bug eggs hidden on the Jarradale pumpkin plant. You are infinite in number on July 20th. Dining on new buds at dusk, I spy you, my newly hatched. Tiny balls of sticks or 2-day-old porcelain robin eggs, blue bits with 6 roving legs. You drill blossoms, share thirst for sweet sap of pumpkin flower. Upon which stem or leaf did I lay you? There are so many of you. We glance at each other across petals. Me proud, there are so many of you. You, many daughters born loving pumpkins. This is a lullaby about multitude. This is a lullaby about plenitude. This is a lullaby about plethora. This is a lullaby about profusion. This is a ballad about coverage, overage, overachieving, achieving success, excess, succession. This is an ode to pumpkins withering on the vine, the ones that never had a chance, worrying, collapsing, shuddering, shuddering. This is a eulogy about one garden dream that fed on another. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Megan.
Thank you all. Thanks, Jules. John. Bravo.
Bravo, bravo.
Thanks, Steve. Thanks, Diego.
Yeah, bravo.
Yeah.
Encore.
Hey,
Yeah.
Diego.
That's a family member.
Yes, that was delightful, Megan. Thank you so much. And I think that it could be argued that there are quite a few people who would social distance better with a cone.
Yeah.
And probably a leash.
Yeah.
Anyway, thank you. Thank you. And again, Megan's books are all available on the Poetry Playhouse publications list Jules is posting, and or on the Jules Poetry Playhouse website, or on Amazon and so forth. Okay, so our second reader tonight, who is now in Salem, Massachusetts, is recently retired from Rochester Institute of Technology. We were colleagues there for about 15 years. And Gail Hosking was a beloved professor, creative writing, also taught at the Writers and Books Literary Center there, and again, in much demand. And she's a memoirist, an essayist, and a poet, and the author of an award-winning memoir, Snake's Daughter, from the University of Iowa Press, a poetry chapbook, The Tug, from Finishing Line Press, and the 2020 poetry book, Retrieval, from Main Street Rag Publishing. I believe she'll be reading mostly from that, maybe some new work as well. Gail has an MFA from Bennington College, and also is somebody that you are really going to enjoy. So warm welcome to Gail Hosking. Gail?
Yeah, hi.
Yeah.
Wow, thank you, John. That was awfully nice. I didn't think about 15 years, but that sounded like a long time to be at RIT.
I was there for
okay.
20, so.
Yeah, that's true. Retrieval, the book I'm going to read from, came out just as the pandemic was hitting the world. And so everything that I had signed up for reading course, was canceled. So it's especially nice then to have an opportunity. The book is not, doesn't have any humor in it though, so I'm sorry about that. It's about the collateral damage of war, you know, and its legacy, dealing with the home front as well as the battlefield. Yeah, so it is what it is in terms of that, but it's divided into 3 parts, and I thought I would read 2 from each section. I was trying to remember what the logic was for those 3 sections, but I think it has a lot to do with timing. So this starts at an early age. And the cover, by the way, is a photograph taken in India, right down the road from this monastery up here. And down here, I was teaching creative writing one summer in India. And I just love I didn't take the picture, somebody else did. Andy Knapp did, and he allowed me to use it as a cover. But those are the Buddhist prayer flags that are everywhere up in Sikkim in India. And I use that because my father, who was in Vietnam, was very attracted towards the end of his life to Buddhism. And there's some poems in here about that. So anyway, it seemed to make sense. So at an early age, I watched men parachute from planes and women read the future from empty palms. I learned how fathers depart in the middle of the night with rucksacks and guns, while mothers linger at the window, shifting the weight of loneliness like a toddler from one hip to the other. I whispered prayers for the world to stay solid. But when the war blew my father into pieces difficult to find, the limits of language rested on a foggy horizon. For a lifetime, I've brushed up against those borders, picked at scabs of history. I've paused some nights in dimly lit rooms at the breaking point, searching for words in the margins, those out of bound conversations. The next poem is called Midway, and it was a place that I flipped hamburgers for 50 cents an hour, if you can imagine, as a teenager. So I called it Midway, but anyway, Midway. Between my boyfriend's big white house and the housing project where I lived, teens gathered with their Mustangs and Impalas. While they drank cherry cokes, the jukebox sang its wistful songs of the 4 seasons as Take Me to Shangri-La melodies rose above the din of football scores and nicknames yelled across the room. I stood behind the counter flipping burgers, dipping frozen fries like dead fingers into bubbling oil. 50 cents an hour could be spent in no time on my own dinner, not to mention the taxes taken out for Uncle Sam, who used those dimes to send Tommy Thompson sitting in a red vinyl booth to war. Ballad of the Green Beret made the charts that year. At the same time, operations like Osage and Eagle, sweet names, oddly meant for artillery positions and ambushes, shaped the news. None of us read about such things. Instead, watched who drove by with whom. A honk met Bring the Burgers outside, and I delivered, unaware of Johnson saying to his chief of staff, just let me get elected and you can have your damn war. I wiped my hands clean on my apron, watched someone I thought I loved leave with Sherry Baby or Rhonda, just like the song said. Alone when Midway closed at midnight, I swept the floor, poured grease into the garbage, unplugged the jukebox, and the once lively room filled with silence, all that beautiful music done. So I'll go to the second section here. This one's called White House. It's a short one. I actually, with my family, went to the White House, and my father received posthumously the Medal of Honor. And so Nixon was the president at the time. So White House. After the ceremony, President Nixon gave us all pens. then escorted my grandmother in her lace gloves and church hat to the rose garden because his aides told him she loved roses. I watched my 8-year-old brother clutch the medal near his chest, not sure if it was for him or what he had done to earn it. The photographer asked us to smile. And the next one from that midsection is called Notes from the Underground. Yeah, an editor one time, and I put this in there, an editor one time told me I had sent either an essay or a poem on one of my favorite subjects, Vietnam. And he said, you know, I don't know why you keep writing about it. He says, it's passé. So I put that in there. And that's what this poem is about. Notes from the Underground. When I pick up written notes after phone calls from the other men, I recognize I'm holding the dead, the ones in the field with my dad that day, the ones who knew the war was run by politicians, but went anyway, because that's what soldiers do. The ones who helped paint a picture, a case of hand grenades under my dad's cot, how he touched your shoulder when he talked to make sure he had your full attention, spoke with the Cambods in their language. His immaculate uniform, his high-pitched laugh, it's all there, scribbled on paper. In a leafless forest, not a bird in sight, I'm unable to invent forms to accommodate that loss or to throw the notes out, as though I might bring my dad back just by keeping them together with a paper clip, as though it's me and me alone who must remember. And for what? Vietnam is passé, an editor tells me. But these men, I want to say, these men, when I see that the silver fox in Alabama has died, why do I weep? Why do I need to tell someone I don't even know how the team house at Long Bend caught on fire until it got to my father's room, how he made a run for it just in time, how a stranger identified my father's body, what was left of it, waited for the plane to pick them up, zipped in a bag. There's no getting anything back from the dead. Their memories are mine now. The poet who never went to war, the woman walking in a crowd, seeing it all like a movie that keeps playing, the one still staring out the window, trees poking up through the snow, hearing a requiem that refuses to end. And the last two from the last section, this one, you know, sometimes things get triggered, and you know that as writers, from the simplest of things or the most unexpected things. And I had been with friends down in the Finger Lakes area south of Rochester, and we had watched this documentary on the burning of Detroit. And there was Marvin Gaye, you know, singing his song, famous song, Abraham, Martin, and John. And we went outside afterwards, and I looked up and saw the Seven Sisters of the Pleiades. And I don't know, one thing led to another, and eventually this poem. So the poem I dedicated to Marvin Gaye, who sang it. And the name of the song was What's Going On, for Marvin Gaye. I step outside after the Detroit documentary, a city on fire, war protests, Marvin Gaye's music of Abraham, Martin, and John repeating in my head. I watch the Seven Sisters of the Pleiades through binoculars, looking ancient and wise, a flock of doves glittering for our attention. I'm thinking how Martin once addressed the nation with his songs, while Ain't No Mountain High Enough turns over and over, how clearly I can see everything suddenly. I imagine my mother's blue eyes soaking up sorrow like sandbags after a monsoon, her life hidden in the statistics of war, not loitering in some bar, but smoking cigarettes with the other military wives, waiting for the returns. I rarely go back anymore until Motown, the songs of that time, step on stage and Marvin asks us again, what's going on? This is who I am, my mother says in my mind's ear. I recall how I laughed at the way she slurped as she leaned over her soup, her sizzled eyes taking that road to the end. I had nothing to offer. What were we then? What were any of us? My mother weeping, Marvin singing, brother, father, mother. I need a witness. His tunes pull me into the otherwise stillness as dragonflies light up in the dark. We still need to be rescued from giant bears out there. Got to find a way. Surely some savior sits in those celestial crevices. And lastly, we get to the Buddhist part here, called Buddha Montage. And this also happened, I have a friend who lives right near Salem in Beverly, and she's a Buddhist. And that's why I was in India, by the way, in that school that she helped start. But in her house where I was there for a little writing retreat, I was noticing these paintings, I guess, Buddhist deity paintings. And it just, anyway, this came out of that. It's called Buddha Montage. There's no color in my father's photographs, this tapestry of uniforms, just faces alive in the way the dead walk among us. Their sweat and grins abide in the midst of sandbags and snakes, rucksacks heavier than any man should carry. I imagine their straps tugging into scapula, the routine of quick decisions. I studied pictures at a friend's house of Buddhist deity paintings, wrathful and otherwise. Ancient figures, she tells me, with their teachings of samsara, karma, and hungry ghosts, bodhisattvas who live by vows for the welfare of others. I recall the times my father's letters contained monks in orange robes, their creeds, then sent me an ivory Buddha to wear around my neck for your protection. I weave together these sentient beings and consider my father's final act, saving the lives of his companions, a fierce lesson of one willing to accept impermanence, self-sacrifice, and the path of no more learning. At my friend's altar, I offer alms to the spirits of the dead. I light incense and pour wine into tiny silver cups. Thank you, thank you.
Thank you, Gail.
If everybody wants to unmute and applaud the two poets, that would be good.
Yeah.
Yes.
Wonderful.
Yay.
Bravo.
Bravo.
I
Awesome.
say bravo.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
say
You.
spectacular.
Thank you all. So again, if you like the poetry, buy the books, right? There are links in there are links to both Gail's and Megan's books in the chat. So the best way to support poetry is to support poets and to read books. So anyway, thank you again to our two features, wonderful, and to everybody here. We've had over 60 people here, which is great. So still have about 60, so that's pretty good.
Everybody.
Anyway, yeah.
Let's stop recording now, but just
Okay, we may stop recording.